Do not watch this video unless you've seen Season 2, Episode 4 of Hazbin Hotel. Spoilers in 3, 2, 1. So, Rosie owns Alastor's soul, and that is this fandom's worst kept secret. We, along with a lot of the chronically online side of the fandom, found out about this plot twist all the way back in November. If you don't know, a Russian hacker got a hold of some parts of Hazbin Hotel Season 2 while they were still in production. The original leaks included an incomplete version of Don't You Forget with all of the scenes leading up to it. But because of this terrible event that I wish didn't happen, mostly because having to moderate spoilers out of my comment sections for an entire year was a fucking nightmare, we've had a lot of time to think about this plot twist. So here's everything inside and outside the show that has hinted at or foreshadowed Alastor's dumbass giving up his soul for a little bit of power. Plus, we're gonna do a little bit of a deep dive into Rosie and Alastor's relationship throughout the series because we can, okay? You can't stop us. We love to yap.
This is Rosie, the most darling, delightful, and dangerous overlord this side of the pentagram.
Before Hazbin Hotel Season 1 even existed, Rosie and Alastor were depicted as being pretty close friends. In the 2019 prequel comic, Alastor was shown to constantly frequent Cannibal Town specifically to visit Rosie. Viv has also drawn them hanging out together in outfits that closely resemble the ones they wore in Episode 4, which kind of makes me think that this plot twist could have been planned since at least 2019.
Will we ever get an Alastor and Rosie duet? Yes.
Please, Rosie, I need this!
I live in a hotel. I want to get the fuck out!
But that's just me reaching. I don't live in Viv's head. Although in retrospect, their apparent friendship should have rose a little more suspicion. Because first of all, we know Alastor usually loves to keep people at arm's length. He distances himself from the people at the hotel, and even amongst other overlords that aren't the V's, he seems to keep up a strictly business relationship with them. But second of all, and more importantly, Alastor is literally known for killing overlords. So him having an overlord friend that he frequently visits should have been more of a red flag. Also, maybe I'm reading too much into this, but Alastor picking up a rose that immediately wilts in the prequel comic feels like it was foreshadowing his complicated relationship with Rosie. Anyways, we will talk about if Rosie and Alastor are actually friends in a bit, but let's move on to talking about Alastor's backstory from the pilot. Baggy states he manifested in hell seemingly overnight, and that kind of raw power he has never been harnessed by a mortal soul before. Almost like a mortal soul couldn't harness that much power, at least that quickly, without help. Wink, wink.
Hello? 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 Hello?
Alastor's pilot backstory was even more on the nose, with Vaggy's next line being,
Many have speculated what unimaginable force enabled him to rival our world's most ancient and destructive evils.
and look who's right next to him. Yeah, Rosie, the unimaginable force giving him power. Vaggy also repeatedly mentions how Alastor shouldn't be trusted, which, you know, should call into question his reason for wanting to help Charlie. I still can't believe some people really believed Alastor was purely at the hotel for his own entertainment. Like, no, girl. Guys, no. Anyways, even though the pilot is considered spiritually canon now, whatever that means, all of this hinted towards Alastor having some sort of ulterior motive for being at the hotel, and that he was tied to something or someone important.
Alastor? A video camera?
Alastor already came off as sketchy as fuck in the pilot, but his reintroduction in Episode 1 really lays it on thick. In his first 2 minutes of screen time, we learn that he's been absent from hell for quite some time. This absence obviously makes his supposed reason for wanting to stay at the hotel more suspicious. Because what do you mean your attention whore ass chose to stay away from the public eye before you decided to randomly show up at the Princess of Hell's hotel just for funsies?
Liar.
Bro's a horrible liar, oh my god. Obviously, we know now that he was absent because of Rosie, who most likely told him to go to the hotel as part of their plan. And yes, I said their plan. So technically, Al was not even on screen for a full 2 minutes and his deal was already brought up. We just didn't know about it yet. His actions in this episode and the pilot don't directly point to him being in a deal with Rosie, but they are the first hints we get that point to the fact that Alastor is up to something. But we do get one easy to miss line that does quickly and subtly tie Alastor to Cannibal Town. During Happy Day in Hell, Charlie sings,
To the Cannibal Town, where they don't wear a frown!
And who's the only character we know at this point in the story that doesn't wear a frown? This smiling freak who frequents Cannibal Town, Freak Whitley.
And that smiling freak.
So, in retrospect, this episode really said, Alastor's suspicious, go look at Cannibal Town, bitch! But like, really subtly.
Wait, who are the beasts?
Oh, nobody important.
In this episode, Vox reveals that Alastor has been gone for a whole 7 years. Valentino also says that he thought Alastor was, quote, gone for good. This line suggests to me that they both thought Alastor had died. Because we know sinners can regenerate, they can't really stay gone for good unless an angelic blade takes them out. I have a whole theory about where Alastor could have gone when Rosie sent him away. But again, this line just highlights how abnormal Alastor's absence is and how strange it is that he's back. Oh yeah, and it ties him to a certain yearly extermination and a certain someone. But that's a topic for a different video. Also, in this episode, we get to see some of Alastor's powers that allow him to rival Hell's greatest evils. And fun fact, his ability to summon these weird creatures is partially how I managed to predict he made a deal for power while on Earth. Simply because he's the only overlord we've seen that is able to summon living things that aren't sinners. Yeah, I don't think these guys are sinners, mostly because we haven't seen any sinner that resembles them literally ever. And they seem to be made up of his own shadows. It's always given, Alastor has access to a power source no one else has access to, but hey, that's just me reaching. If you aren't crazy and aren't overanalyzing things like me, episode 2 just continues the theme of slapping viewers over the head with the Alastor's absence is suspicious hammer.
Alastor!
Do you mind?
If you somehow didn't catch on to his absence being suspicious yet, Zestial asked Alastor the question you should be asking by saying, where the fuck have you been, ho, and why you at that fuck-ass hotel? Zesty's words, not mine. Yeah, totally. But conveniently, right after their conversation, we're introduced to Rosie. Alastor and Rosie quietly sit next to each other in the Overlord meeting, and before Carmilla walks in, they make a point to highlight Rosie specifically by having her smile at Frank. She seemed real nice and unassuming before she revealed her sinister side with that smirk. I mean, it's hard not to look scary with pure black eyes and sharp teeth, but watching the scene with the knowledge that thousands of people didn't expect Rosie to own Alastor's soul simply because she seemed so nice just makes me fucking laugh. Also, this episode canonically takes place 2 weeks after the pilot, so Alastor had just come back from his 7-year absence. If him and Rosie weren't in cahoots, she probably should have been more surprised to see him here. You know, like how she acted in episode 7. Next, I know I'm reaching with this, but Alastor saying, I'm sure you've all been wondering where I've been, while sitting next to the person who is literally responsible for his absence, feels like a cry for help. This line also clearly illustrates just how much of an attention whore Alastor is, which officially points out how unlike him it is to be off the air for so long. Almost like it wasn't his choice to take a well-earned sabbatical.
Nothing serious.
Alastor's horrible blatant lie is so fucking funny to me, because once again, he's such a terrible liar.
Though it's fun to keep everyone on their toes.
A vacay is so unbelievable, like, he couldn't come up with anything better. He's apparently self-employed, and a sabbatical is a paid period of leave, so like, Alastor, were you paying yourself not to work? Really? That's really so fucking stupid. Anyway, I have always personally thought that Alastor's absence was against his will because of his, attention baiting here. Like, if he willingly left, why would he call out his own suspicious activities? This line is even funnier considering that Rosie doesn't want her deal with Alastor to be known. So Alastor really pulled the, aren't my activities suspicious, guys, right in front of her because he knew she couldn't do shit about it in the moment. But their deal being a secret also makes the fact that they sat right next to each other so fucking funny. Like, yeah, guys, good job at keeping your alliance secret by giggling next to each other at the Overlords meeting. But I guess it's good to hide in plain sight. I mean, Sam Aft, one of Has-Been's songwriters, did say that he thinks Fox didn't visit Rosie during Bad With Us because he knows she's close with Al.
My sense of it is that Rosie is so frequently with Alastor that I don't think she's even on his radar for like, oh, here's a person that's going to join me. That said, I'm not in Vox's head. I just co-write the songs.
But he never once suspected her when questioning Alastor in episode 4, so maybe hiding in plain sight is really paying off. Overall, this episode has a few good moments that foreshadow Alastor and Rosie's deal, but once again, if you aren't detail-oriented like us, this episode does a good job at once again beating your ass with the Alastor's is suspicious hammer. Damn. Sorry, girl. No, you're not.
Hiya! Welcome to heaven!
Alastor is nowhere to be seen in episodes 4 and 6, which is odd because he claims to be the host of the hotel, and bitch, how can you host if you're not even there? So where was he in these 2 episodes? We don't have an official answer, but I got 2 theories. Theory number 1, the boring theory, Alastor didn't need to be in these episodes writing-wise, so they cut him out. Theory number 2, he was actually at Rosie's, plotting and scheming. I actually have evidence for this, but you gotta wait a few minutes for it. Loser, you gotta wait. Anyways, let's move on to the real meat of this video.
Ugh, finally. Took you long enough.
Okay, we're gonna start mixing up the order of events here, and we're gonna talk about Husk and Alastor's, friendly chat first, because rewatching the scene with the context of It's a Deal really explains some of Alastor's actions. I think Alastor was feeling sort of inferior when Lucifer, a more powerful being than him, stepped into the hotel, cause we all know he likes to be the strongest. So when Husk approached him and started questioning his choices, Alastor snapped, making the unjustified decision to use the same tactics Rosie uses on him to make Husk feel inferior instead. He literally pets Husk like Rosie pets him, and calls Husk his pet like Rosie calls him her pet. And I'm a brag for a second. When the leaks for Don't You Forget originally came out, I knew they were real because of the pet line. When I first saw this scene in episode 5, I predicted that whoever owned Alastor's soul definitely called him their pet. Mostly because this whole scene felt like such projection on Alastor's part, especially after Husk brought up Alastor being on a leash. I just knew the word leash was the thing that specifically triggered him because his deal holder treats him like a pet, and heh, I was right. Okay, don't need to clap, don't need to clap. Okay, I'm done bragging. Actually, no I'm not, because guess what? The background music that plays in this scene caused me to correctly predict that Alastor's soul deal was made on Earth. Now, this is unconfirmed, but if you listen closely, the background music seems to be a slowed down version of the intro to the fan song Alastor's Game, written and sung by Sam Haft. If you don't know, Alastor's Game is a song that depicts Alastor going up to Earth to make deals with humans. Now, the song isn't canon by any means, but when I noticed that it was possibly playing in the background, I couldn't help but think it was peculiar that a song about Alastor making deals on Earth played during the first scene Alastor's deal was brought up.
Good talk, my good man. Always nice to catch up.
So, I did what I do best. I jumped to conclusions and assumed because of this minute detail Alastor had made his soul deal while on Earth. The pieces are piecing together. And I was right. Did Sam Haft actually throw this song in as a little Easter egg? I honestly have no idea. But Sam, if you're watching this, just nod and say yes. Anyways, going backwards in this episode, Mimsy tells us a new rendition of Alastor's backstory from the pilot, which once again reiterates a little more obviously that Alastor appeared in hell suddenly, making a splash quicker than anyone had ever seen. And come on guys, not to hype myself up again, but this line is also how I predicted Alastor had made a deal for power. Making a splash quicker than anyone had ever seen is almost as obvious as the line. What unimaginable force allowed Alastor to rival hell's most ancient evils from the pilot. The show is literally begging us to start questioning why Alastor is so powerful. Right before they give us the answer, he's powerful because of his deal. And now that we know Rosie has owned his soul since he got to hell and that every move he makes is hers, Alastor causing overlords to mysteriously disappear was definitely tied to Rosie.
But I've been running all over hell on some fruitless crusade for years.
So now I'm wondering, what the hell did they do with those overlords? Cause I definitely don't believe they're dead. No one saw Alastor kill them, and broadcasted screams could totally be fake. Like, he AI generated those. I'm calling cap. He just had Husk scream into the microphone every time. No, he really did. He said, now do a lady scream. Now do a girl scream. Now do a man scream. Now do, well, it probably wasn't Husk. Husk wasn't alive back then, but you know, he fucking paid somebody to scream into a mic, or he just didn't kill them. You know, they could have been tortured but not killed. Yeah. I feel like they're in a circus or something. A pet circus. Okay, I'm done. Anyways, enough theorizing. This episode does such a good job at adding a lot more depth and mystery into Alastor's character, while also subtly giving us the answers. But okay, let's finally get to the episode you've all been waiting for, and the one with the most clues towards Rosie and Alastor's deal, episode 7.
Oh, look at you, so polite. Alastor, you could learn a thing or two.
This episode beginning with Alastor's iconic monologue.
Just because you see a smile, don't think you know what's going on underneath.
It's so fucking ironic in retrospect, because I remember seeing everyone put together cute edits of Rosie and Alastor with captions like, "Aw, Alastor looks like he's genuinely smiling with Rosie. They are so bestie score." Girl, he smiles all the time, and did we not just hear the first 5 minutes of this episode? He literally said, "I'm wearing a well-crafted mask that hides my true emotions," and everyone was like, did y'all hear something? Guys, I think that was just the wind. Yeah, I don't think there was the first 5 minutes in this episode. Alastor didn't even speak in the first 5 minutes. No, he didn't. He was silent. Like, yeah. Okay, we're being dramatic. And we might be projecting a little. Because we might have done this exact same thing. But this line doesn't just tell us that Alastor is hiding shit. It once again reminds us that Alastor's smile is a key aspect of his character. Conveniently, right before we see him walk into a place where all the other smiling freaks go.
Cannibal Town.
He visually fits right into Rosie's town, almost as if he's intrinsically tied to it himself through a soul deal with its matriarch. Okay, obviously you're not supposed to pick up on all of that just because Alastor said his smile's a tool, but looking back, their connection feels so obvious. Anyways, like I promised, there are a few hints in this episode that point towards the fact Alastor had been plotting and scheming at Rosie's before episode 7. So, I'm not gonna tell you what they are. I'm kidding. Let's go through them. First of all, Alastor stating that he knows just the person who can help is giving setup. Come on. You just know his ass has been waiting for the perfect opportunity to take Charlie to Rosie's. But second of all, and more importantly, Rosie put on a fucking show. First, she acts like she hadn't seen Alastor in 7 years when we at least know she saw him at the Overlord meeting around 5 months ago. Then she acted like she didn't know who the fuck Charlie was when she walked in with Alastor. You're telling me Val knew exactly who Charlie was as soon as she walked into his humble sex dungeon, but Rosie didn't? Come on. I feel like she purposely played nice and unassuming because she needed Charlie to trust her quickly. Rosie saying Charlie visiting is such a regal surprise is so funny to me because, girl, you knew she was coming. Or you at least knew Alastor was gonna bring her eventually. It's really giving, oh my god, do you come here often? I've never seen you before. Oh my god, do you come here often? I've never seen you before. But the most damning evidence, apart from Rosie and Alastor literally stating they have a plan to guide Charlie and ready for this, is Rosie pulling out this box of pinky fingers that we know Alastor gave her. This is a completely uneaten box, which to me implies that Alastor had in fact been there recently, or he just gives Rosie food she doesn't fucking like. But based on what we see in episode 4, it seems like Alastor brings her pinky fingers and roses almost every time he visits. The dead flowers signal that he hadn't been there in a while, and that he seems to be the only one that replaces them. So I think it's safe to assume he's the only one bringing her pinky fingers. And I know we're reaching with this, but Rosie telling Alastor to introduce her to Charlie is giving, dude, we rehearsed this and you're missing your cue. Like, the way he goes, ah yes, just takes me out. Like he was really that caught off guard by the Ace comment, he forgot his next line.
What now?
But moving on, let's do every fandom's favorite activity and overanalyze body language. Because there are a lot of off moments in episode 7, starting with how many times they blink. So Alastor blinks a total of 7. Okay, we're kidding, but don't threaten us with a good time. We will count their blinks. We would. When we're introduced to Rosie at this point in the story, we can infer that Alastor was already fed up with being under her contract. Because number 1, bro was literally crying for help at the Overlord meeting. Number 2, on top of friend being his trigger word, leashes too. Number 3, we learn that he was mad about being forced off the air, so resentment likely built up. And number 4, he knows all the words to Don't You Forget, which implies he's thrown similar hissy fits before the one we see in episode 4. So looking back on their interactions with this knowledge, we can clearly see there's some tension between them. The easiest way to see through their cute friendship ruse is to first look at Alastor's dynamic with Mimsy. Now, I know a lot of people think Mimsy shouldn't have been introduced in episode 5 because she was just used as a plot device for Alastor and then tossed aside. And I kind of agree with that, but I think her introduction was smart for 2 reasons. Reason number 1, their interaction establishes how Alastor actually acts around his close friends. Yeah, I said friend Al, calm down, and Mimsy haters, I do think her and Alastor are actually friends. Just look at them. But number 2, it opens you up to the idea that Mr. Tall, Dark, and Creepy could actually have friends. I 100% believe that seeing Alastor's relationship with Mimsy is what partially caused some people to not think twice about his relationship with Rosie. If Rosie was the only person we saw Alastor be friendly with, then we all would have immediately been way more suspicious of her. Instead, everybody just assumed Alastor has a gaggle of gal pals, and honestly, I still want to believe that. He definitely gets invited to girls' sleepovers, right? And I feel like he's sort of friends with Rosie still. They're just toxic friends. Anyway, Alastor is very affectionate and friendly towards his friend, Mimsy, who he hasn't seen since his 7-year absence.
Mimsy!
He seems actually happy to see her, they willingly hug, and and mutually hype each other up.
Oh, quite a talent, this gal.
Mimsy even mentions how they used to party together, and I don't know, that sounds like a very friendship-shaped activity to do. Al, I'm onto you, you have friends. Despite Mimsy using him for his powers, which he didn't mind until her shit messed with his plan, by the way, they seem to actually be genuine friends. In comparison, Alastor isn't very affectionate with Rosie. He supposedly hasn't seen her in a while either, and all he does is stand there and wave. Instead of hugging, Rosie grabs him like she just saw a cute chihuahua, and he freezes up. If you cover up the smile he's so desperately holding on to here, you can tell dude looks pretty pissed off. Next, Alastor does hype her up, but by calling her dangerous, which a massive red don't trust Rosie flag. But besides calling Alastor charming, all Rosie does is scold him and degrade him multiple times.
Alastor, you could learn a thing or two.
Really, the only nice thing she says is,
"And old Alastor has never done me wrong before."
which sounds more like a threat than a compliment, because bitch, you own him, he theoretically can't do you wrong. Well, at least in season 1. Oh. All of her jabs and boundary crossing come off as friendly banter between friends, mostly because of Rosie's sweet demeanor and Alastor's plastered on smile. We're just using this video as an excuse to abuse each other, apparently. But with the context of Don't You Forget, it seems like Rosie was just following her usual condescending routine. The way Alastor silently takes the jabs and doesn't even joke back definitely should have felt more suspicious too. Because we all know his ass loves to argue. Alastor just likely couldn't fight back because of Charlie's presence. Rosie really pulled an Uno reverse on him for that shit he pulled at the Overlord meeting. Although it does seem like around Rosie, Alastor usually keeps his mouth shut and takes the disrespect. Rosie violates Alastor's boundaries multiple times throughout episode 4 by grabbing him and tossing him around like a puppet, and he doesn't push her away. When if Rosie was anybody else, he usually would have. In episode 7, we can see their usual dynamic playing out. Alastor accepts Rosie grabbing him pretty aggressively twice. Also, is it just me or does Alastor's expression in these two scenes feel eerily similar? But as we know, Rosie views Alastor as her pet and has been treating him like her little errand boy for over 100 years. And oh boy, does she got him trained. During Charlie and Alastor's walk to Cannibal Town, Alastor visibly does not give a fuck about Charlie until they reach Rosie's Emporium. When they get close, Alastor puts on his salesman persona, grabs Charlie in a gentlemanly way, and opens the door for her, almost as if someone taught him manners and expects them.
But where are your manners, mister?
Okay, this is just me speculating, but I don't think Alastor has always resented Rosie. She gave him power and let him continue his fun. So I bet at one point, Alastor did genuinely bring her flowers and cannibal candy like a sitcom husband before every visit. But maybe tension started to build between them, possibly after his 7-year sabbatical, causing Alastor to possibly become more impolite as time went on, which could have made Rosie continuously demand respect like we see in Don't You Forget and in episode 7. Cause at least to me, Alastor's Honey I'm Home bit in episode 4 felt so hollow. Like, you cannot tell me he actually wanted to do any of this. Also, the way Rosie doesn't acknowledge any of Alastor's showboating definitely makes me think this is a routine she's used to. Anyway, I swear the way Alastor says,
Isn't it though?
in episode 7 carries the same fake ass tone as his
A little old me now.
from episode 4. He really hit the little Gideon.
Little old me.
But our point is, it's giving practice niceness, and oh boy, is he bad at acting. And you can tell me if I'm reading too much into this, but the way Alastor doesn't get a seat during this conversation makes him feel like such a servant, especially with how he leans down towards Rosie here. Alastor handing Rosie her umbrella is also sort of giving the same vibe to me. Like, he's not just being a gentleman, he's acting like her right-hand man because he is. Anyway, the last thing that feels like a massive clue towards Alastor and Rosie's deal in this episode is this scene where Rosie offers Alastor a guy he can make a deal with. I think Rosie was giving Al a command to get the deal, so when he acted like he had a choice, she hit him with this face. Although Alastor offered her something better in return for his refusal, so she took the risk and accepted his plan. This is why I think Rosie threatened that he better not do her wrong. Why was that fucking country? Oh no. You better not do me wrong, boy. But I also think Alastor answered with a suspicious amount of emphasis on the eat their fill line, because he was discreetly trying to say, oh, don't worry, Rosie, this is all for our plan. But hey, that's just a theory. Okay, overanalyzing over. It's finally time to move on to episode 8.
Adam, First man, next to die.
Alastor telling Adam that
You should know better than anyone what a soul can accomplish when they take charge of their own fate.
is obviously Alastor referring to himself. This line is the only line in the show that directly hints to the fact Alastor made a deal for power while on Earth. He didn't just accept his fate of landing in hell powerless. You know, bro decided to pre-order his powers, but he didn't realize that he got next day shipping. This episode once again reiterates that Alastor is stuck in a deal, but adds that he's super desperate to get out of it, and oh man, he sure does get out of it. Also, don't these two scenes feel so visually similar to each other with all the green? Or is it just me seeing the vibe? And let me just brag again, Alastor looking so manic during his breakdown is how I partially managed to predict he made a deal for power while on Earth. Cause just look at him. This crash out has been cooking for decades, and you can fucking tell, and I fucking knew it.
I know I won! I'm like winning!
Anyway, last but not least, this episode gives us another good look at Alastor's powers like episode 5 does, and there's eyes on his shield. Interesting. Yeah, he's connected to Rue. Just you wait, we're gonna be right about that too. Okay, that's a theory for a different video. Let's end this long-ass video with our final thoughts on Rosie and Alastor's relationship.
We really aren't getting any closer to...
Alastor.
So, what exactly is Rosie and Alastor's relationship, and what are they gonna be doing in season 3? We're not sure, but we can speculate. Like we said earlier, I feel like before Alastor's 7-year absence, Rosie and Alastor had a pretty genuine partnership. Sam Half said recently that Rosie has some sort of real affection for Alastor, even if it's just like the pet affection, right?
What is interesting about this song lyrically is that basically all the language that Rosie uses around Alastor is animal in nature. Reason number 1 is to highlight, again, that Rosie is a different sort of overlord. A pet is something you might legitimately have real affection for, unlike the way many other overlords treat souls in their bondage.
And on the commentary track for the Has Been Hotel Blu-ray, Viv did say that Alastor does like Rosie.
He kind of likes other people. He kind of likes Rosie. Kind of likes Charlie. Alastor and Rosie have always been friends in my like old art and everything. So I'm excited for people to see their relationship.
Match each other's freak.
Exactly. They match each other's freak.
So now, as of the end of season 2, we can safely assume Alastor and Rosie are back to being toxic besties, like we all thought they were originally. Yes, Alastor resented Rosie for the entirety of season 1 and season 2, but it's not like he disagreed with her plan. As evident by him continuing to work with her in the finale, and by him returning to the hotel even after he got his soul back. Rosie and Alastor seem to be on the same page about wanting to guide Charlie in some direction. Alastor just managed to regain control of his autonomy, so he can work on his own plans of being the one pulling all the strings in season 3, and feeding you radio apples apparently, because goddamn, you always win. Anyways, as you can tell by this long-ass video, we love Rosie and Alastor so much, and we cannot wait to see what their dynamic is gonna be like in season 3, especially now that they're like on more equal footing to each other, right? Like, is Rosie still gonna be like demeaning towards Alastor even though she doesn't own his soul anymore? Right, I feel like he's gonna do a lot more talking back. Yeah, like, cause she can get away with it now. Yeah. But that's everything inside and outside the show that has hinted at or foreshadowed Alastor's dumbass giving up his soul for a little bit of power. Did you guys catch all of these hints, or was it crazy? Was it just us? I think we're a little crazy. And did we miss anything? Let us know down in the comments below. But just remember, to dream is to expand your imagination and to create a reality. Anything's possible and things don't have to make sense. See you in our next video. I'm out of here. Oh shit. Bye guys.